Hey, and welcome back to the NOTCAST, or welcome if this is the first one that you've seen. Number 344, 22nd of December, 2023. Today I am going to be talking about everyone's favourite Christmas band. Actually, they aren't a Christmas band at all. I'm going to be talking about everyone's favourite nostalgia act, Guns N' Roses, who released their new single, Perhaps, backed with the General last week. And also have spent most of the past 7 years on the road playing old songs to old people, reminding them of old times. Now, it's going to sound like I'm being a little bit harsh, and absolutely I am. But when I do these notcasts, I pick a subject that interests me. It obviously, by looking at the viewing figures, doesn't interest many other people. And they all come from a place of love. These are all bands that I've loved or had a relationship with. And there are very few ones, actually, if you watch them, where I get really bitchy and nasty and I go, oh, this band are terrible, awful, no good, very bad indeed. Don't listen to them. Of course, the expectations that I have when a band that I like release something that I want to hear are higher for, let's say, Guns N' Roses than they are for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, on the grounds that Red Hot Chili Peppers are always unmitigated garbage, and their music is atrocious, and it sounds like a stupid person's idea of what a stupid band might be. I probably should stop talking about them on the grounds that this is not what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be talking about Guns N' Roses, who have become a nostalgia act over the past few years, and my relationship to their new material, the new material that has come out, and what the band have been up to. The other thing I should probably point out, really, is for me, it's really, really difficult to remain a fan of a band in an active way that doesn't release new songs. Now, lots of people go, oh, nobody buys albums anymore. And what's the point of making new material if nobody buys it? Well, the point of making new material is when you come to doing your 30th anniversary box set, if you're going to do a 30th anniversary box set of an album, you've actually got to release an album in the first place to do it. And you actually then got to be able to tour the album to be able to do a live album from the tour. You can't just rely and coast on fumes being creatively bankrupt over the past however many years it is. So there is no evidence that Guns N' Roses have written any piece of music since 2004. There's no evidence that Kraftwerk have written any song since 2002, for example. And when bands start to become effectively touring museums to how good they used to be, I start to tune out. I'm not able to form new memories with bands if they don't have new material, because I don't want to necessarily be listening to a song that was written and recorded when I was 14, I'm not even 49 anymore. That's all right. A song when I'm 15, when I'm in my 50s, and kind of go, it still speaks to me, man. Because the Guns N' Roses songs that were recorded and released when I was 15, Out to Get Me, Anything Goes, Used to Love Her But I Had to Kill Her. Those are not songs that I'm listening to as a 50-year-old and going, yep, they've stood the test of time. Some of these songs have aged like milk. I can't form new memories with old songs, and I can't have new relationships to old songs apart from a sense of vague embarrassment, kind of like when you look at, as Bill Bryson said, age and guile beat youth and a bad haircut every time. And I'm very interested in when artists write new material as they get older. I think aging and getting older is one of the most beautiful and fascinating things that there is. I have known... Well, pretty much all of my friends have got older, of course. It's not like Matthew McConaughey, hey, in Dazed and Confused saying, that's the thing, man. I get older and the girls stay the same age. That's not what I'm interested in at all. And I'm not interested in listening to music that reminds me of when I was young, because when I was young, it was pretty rubbish overall. I've found that over time and over the years, I've got happier and I've got better and I'm a better human being. My life has improved by leaps and bounds. I have become a better human being. I'm not interested necessarily in staying forever in the version of me that was always 15 years old. I always think that when people say, school was the best days of my life, you've got a shit life if that's how you look at it. Because if you're an adult, you can make your adulthood some of the best days of your life, and you bloody well should. And if you aren't aspiring to achieving that, I don't know what you're doing with your time apart from, working and eating pasta and going and playing golf or something. So for me, I'm really, really interested in bands that create new material because I can have new relationships with that music. I can form new memories with them, build new narratives and new mythologies. And even if I don't connect to the material, I'd much rather the material is there and people enjoy it than the material not be there, if that makes sense. I may not necessarily always love the new stuff by bands that I love. I'm not going to name the names of the bands, but I don't have very many of their more recent t-shirts because I don't necessarily like the material. So a band might release a new album and I might listen to it and go, sounds like B-sides from 1994. Of course, the B-sides from 1994 were pretty darn good, but they're not as good as the A-sides from 1994. But what I want to do is I want to have the experience to be able to try the new material and see if I connect to it. And I think, as I said before, aging is beautiful and it's interesting. It's absolutely fascinating. I'm really interested in the future. It's where I'm going to be spending the rest of my life. And I'm not interested in bands that become nostalgia acts, that don't have new material. Obviously, if you forget your history, you are doomed to repeat the mistakes of your past. But at the same point, if all you ever do is talk about how you were once absolutely fantastic in the football team when you were 17, don't be surprised when 70-year-olds go, dude, that was a long time ago. Yes, I like old bands, but I like old bands that make new memories and new material. And I think I'd be really, really interested in hearing, actually, I'm going to say it, AC/DC have found one formula and stuck to it forever. And even like in 2020, when they're about 72 or something, and they're still doing songs with crude innuendo titles like Money Shot and Shot Down in Flames and things like that. Whereas, okay, I guess that's a sign of just not getting any older and not maturing. That's okay. But at least give people the opportunity to hear new stuff. And if a band doesn't release new stuff, you're not able to connect to it. Now, I'm absolutely fascinated in hearing what, for example, a 60-year-old Axl Rose would sing about going as you get to the age of 60, as you become ostensibly an adult, and you start to go, right, so what are the things that really interest, Axl at this point? What melodic ideas has he come up? Because, the guy's written some amazing songs. He's written some fantastic lyrics, especially on Chinese Democracy. And yet at the same point, you end up kind of going, but all you're doing is singing 30-year-old songs to old people, and you're charging 2093 prices for 1993 set lists. And you end up going, well, what's the motive for doing that? Is it money? Because as Slash said, Axl has more integrity than anyone. He won't do anything for business or money. So you're doing it for glory? Not quite sure. So what's the reason why Guns are touring? And also I feel a little bit uncertain about when bands get old people back in the band. It's kind of like, texting your ex after 20 years and going, basically a reunion tour from Guns N' Roses is almost like a booty call with your high school girlfriend. Not that I've done that, because my girlfriend when I was at school was awful, a terrible relationship. Hopefully not a terrible person now, but since I haven't seen them for 32 years, I really don't give a shit. But it's that kind of thing. It's like if I texted my first girlfriend and went, hey, you wanna? And I'm like, no, not at all. I'd never do that. I'd rather spend the rest of my life single and alone than do that. And so from a Guns N' Roses perspective, if you're in Guns at that point, what you're becoming a nostalgia act. And the set list become a rotation of old songs and older songs. The Chinese Democracy songs get slowly whittled down to maybe 2 or 3 a night. And I thought the band was cruising on fumes. So when I last saw them in 2012 at Nottingham Arena, and I thought, okay, so if this is going to be the band turning up late, and I've been bitten by the band turning up late, irrespective of when they think late is, as far as I'm concerned, seeing Guns play to 300 people in a 15,000 arena, playing Paradise City at 1:45 a.m, I was like, this is pathetic, really. And all you had to do was just turn up on time. I just looked at it and I thought, nah, it's not for me. I'm done. I had a law of diminishing returns. So I saw them in 2002 at the Docklands Arena. I bought this t-shirt there. They were incredible, like mind-blowingly good. I saw them in 2006 at Hammersmith Apollo, also known as the Odeon. Always going to be the Odeon, irrespective of what anybody else calls it. That was really good, but finished at 2 a.m. So I got wise to that. And then 2012, I saw them in Nottingham, and I was just like, it's all right, isn't it? It's not amazing. I've seen it all, and I'm going to see it again. But I didn't, because I had the law of diminishing returns, and so at that point, I was out. So there's two types of bands in the world. There's the bands that I like, and the bands that I like and I see live. Guns went from being a band that I liked and saw live to being a band that I didn't like, or more correctly, didn't see live, because my commitment only went as far as buying the records if they ever bloody released any. Appetite for Democracy, of course, is the live box set that chronicles that period. And in 2014, after the last of the Vegas shows, the lineup as was disintegrated. So DJ Ashburn announced he'd left the band in 2015. Bumblefoot left the band in 2014 but didn't make a statement, and in fact still hasn't made a statement about it, I think. Tommy Stinson left the group in 2014, and we had just basically a lineup that had started to become not that many people, so we had 3 people that had left the group. So Guns needed a bassist, they needed a guitar player, and they'd been approached to play Coachella in 2014, but they hadn't committed to anything, and the conversations started to turn to rumours. And the idea was, most conversations about reunions start with money. They think, well, if we do this, we can make a load of money. And that's not a bad thing. I go to work for money. I'm sure many of you do exactly the same thing. But when it comes to art and artistry, I think actually if you've got the opportunity to work in an environment where you don't have to effectively clock into the office, you don't have to work with people you don't like, you've got, as the Guns t-shirt said, freedom through musical integrity. If you work in music and you've got the ability to not have to follow the confines of a regular day job, you don't have to clock in at 9 to 5, you can then start to surround yourself with people you like being around, doing the work that you like doing, that means something to you. And so it's an opportunity that I think millions of people, if you said to millions of people, would you like to be in Guns N' Roses? Millions of people would say yes. I'm not one of them. I have my reasons. And so therefore you should hold music and artistry to a slightly higher standard, in so much as the stuff that you're tampering with, when you're meddling with the primal forces of nature, as Ned Beatty said in Network, when you're doing a live show, is you're interfering with and creating new memories, new ideas, new mythologies and new narratives with old songs. And the reason that any band sells tickets is because these songs mean something to people, they're important to people, and you have to treat the songs with a degree of care. So I think his name is Ian McNabb, who described himself as the custodian of the songs. He happened to have written them and presented them in front of the people, but the songs belong to the people. It's something that Miles Hunter's also picked up, is the concept of being a custodian of songs. It's his job, like Lando Calrissian, is to be an administrator of this facility, not to treat the songs with care and respect because they belong to the people. Really important thing actually to understand, and this is why sometimes people go on about sell out, etc., and other people go, well, why can't they sell out? It's like, well, music means more to people than baked beans, despite what Andy Warhol might put on the cover of the Velvet Underground album. Guns have been approached for Coachella, and when that happens, there are often discussions around money, and money doesn't influence Axl the way that perhaps it influenced a lot of people. As Slash himself said, Axl has more integrity than anybody. He won't do anything for business or for money, and that is the way he does things. If you mention, so there's a chance for glory, there's a chance to rekindle friendships, there's a chance to claim back the band's legacy from the tarnishing element of history. Sure, that's an angle you can take. But if the first conversation is, well, if you do this, you can make X million, it's like, well, I've got a fair few million in the bank. Not me, Axl. And therefore, I'm okay with, leaving some money on the table. One of the things I see sometimes when people go, but they've left money on the table by not doing it. And it's like, well, yeah, but what if you don't want to do it? There's no amount of money in the world if you don't want to do something that will force you to do something that you really, really don't want to do. Somebody said to me, well, if I let's say, and I equate this relationship with band members to being similar to girlfriends, is, if I'd had an awful relationship with somebody 30 years ago, well, I had 32 years ago, it was a fucking awful relationship. I had just exited at that point. Someone said, you can get back together with them and make a load of money. I'm like, no, no, absolutely not. Because if you don't want to do it, there's no amount of money in the world that can force you to do certain things. You know, and that's an important part of it. Is because we only get one shot through life, so we've got to make the decisions that feel right to us, that we can reconcile with our opinions, that also we can reconcile with our ethics and our ideas, and take those ideas forward. You think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I've mentioned before, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs has a number of levels, from, you know, basic sustenance, so things like food, clothing, shelter, heat, all the way up to things like self-actualization. From a Guns N' Roses perspective, they're at the top of the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They've conquered things like, am I going to have enough money for the rest of my life? They're then onto the, what do I want to do with my life? Who do I want to be? What kind of relationships, what kind of interactions do I want to have? How do I want it to work? You know, what do you do when you have everything that you need? And there's a difference between need and want. When you have everything that you need, what do you do? Do you retire? Do you create? Or do you effectively become a global jukebox, a touring museum to how good you once were? And in any respect, Axl, Slash and Duff had to have a working relationship for the rest of their lives, whether they liked it or not, because they had a shared interest in the intellectual property that they as a band had created between 1986 and 1993. They had box sets, merchandise, t-shirts, DVDs, film licensing to approve and authorise. So they had to have a degree of interaction at that point. And the other thing that had to happen is that they had to have a degree of personal interaction as well to become bandmates. So Duff and Axl first played together again in 2010 at the London O2 Arena, when, as it turned out, is that Duff was in the same hotel as Axl. The two met, had a chat. Axl came on board, played a few songs with the band live on stage. And then in 2014, when Tommy couldn't tour, Duff effectively became Guns N' Roses' stunt bass player in a tour of, I think, South America and a couple of US shows. Really, really interesting. And it rekindled that relationship. So when Tommy left the group, and I completely understand why Tommy left the group, and Duff became the band's bass player, that felt like a natural continuation of a legacy, or a reclamation of an existing bit of history. And the reason I think possibly Tommy left the group, the reason lots of people leave bands, is because in order to be in a band, your life has to have a certain set of circumstances that operate around it, that enable you to be away from home for hundreds of days a year and to travel huge distances. And if there's a health factor, a family factor, there's parenthood, for example, if there's other things that make it so that you can't really tour anymore, then that obviously is going to impact and affect it on it. You can only be in a band if you have the support network around you that enables you to do that, or you're willing to burn through all of your personal relationships and miss out on, you know, families, friends, funerals, and anything else starting with an F. Slash divorced, and as I understand it, and I could be completely wrong, his outgoing wife was very, very protective. With that in mind, I think possibly that person not being married to Slash enabled some of the walls to come down. And then the circumstances that caused the band not to exist no longer applied. So the band could exist. And Duff, being friends with both Axl and Slash, as well as them being business partners, that kind of started to dissolve the walls that had previously existed. In January to June 2015, the band was on effectively a hiatus after near constant touring in 2009 to 2014. The original plans that existed to do a continuation LP to Chinese Democracy, which was due to come out in 2012, obviously didn't come to fruition, although apparently the album was finished in 2012. The original plan for a remix LP to support up Chinese Democracy, that didn't come to fruition either. Effectively, with Guns, what we have is a band that has become possibly the least productive band in the world. Once they were the most dangerous band in the world, now they're the least productive. And then the reasons for the split having gone away, the original plans for remix LPs and new LPs effectively disappeared in record company machinations. Not just record company machinations, of course. Guns N' Roses became a nostalgia act, and it was an old lineup, or more correctly, a new lineup, touring old songs. And then as members rotated through, the opportunity came following the dissolution of Velvet Revolver and Duff and Axl becoming friends again, for them to be able to play together again in some form or other, which is exactly what happened. DJ Ashba left on the 27th of July 2015, and whilst he was aware of the criticism of him, he didn't care. And Tommy left because obviously the life circumstances have changed and he was touring with the Replacements to a limited extent. And then rumour mills started to happen. Strange things were afoot at the Circle G&R. Axl, of course, took the view that it ain't announced until it's announced. And there were lots of things that Guns did in the meantime, just quietly under the radar, that weren't announced until they were ready to be announced. Axl tweeted that the only thing that he could confirm was that he loved tacos. Good lad, I like it. But wasn't able to confirm anything else despite all the rumours that were floating about. And then in January 2016, Coachella was announced, saying that Guns N' Roses, featuring Axl Rose alongside Slash and Duff, were to perform the Coachella Festival in April 2016 in the middle of the desert, Indio Valley, wherever the heck that is. And there was no announcement. Who's the drummer? Who's the second guitarist? Is there a keyboard player? So no announcement that Dizzy was in the band, or Frank, or Richard Fortus, all of whom turned out to be in the band. People doorstepped Matt Sorum at airports and was like, "Are you in Guns N' Roses?" And he just said nothing, because that's not his point to say. And apparently Coachella was a $3 million show. So each show the band played had a $3 million minimum, at least at that point. And the band kind of started to play together again. But obviously there's a degree of this show is being walked back. It's a nostalgia show, getting the old band back together in exchange for money and glory, with shows announced at Coachella, then 2 shows at Vegas, then a show in Mexico, and then finally the first show that the band were going to play, which was at the Troubadour on the 1st of April 2016. Pay on the door, long queue to get in, no phones, no footage. Axl broke his leg during the middle of the show, or during the last song of the show. So of course we then got these lovely pictures of Axl in some kind of rock and roll throne, borrowed from Dave Grohl, of course. The first big surprise about that was that Slash and Duff decided that they were going to play Chinese Democracy songs, having not been involved in the creation of those songs. So the band added Chinese Democracy and Better to the band's set list. Over time they also played This I Love, Prostitute, Madagascar, a number of other songs in the set, and it just felt a little weird, because although most of the set list was material that Slash and Duff had played on, and that in itself is not substantially different from when they were playing songs like let's think, there's some songs on Use Your Illusion. You Ain't the First, I think, is one of them, where Slash and Duff had no part in the writing of the song whatsoever. They just happened to have been recorded by Guns first, when they're playing songs that they had no part in the creation of those songs. And I was sceptical and distant, and I'll be honest about that. When a band gets an old member back in the group, sure, I still like the band. Sometimes I still want to go and see the band. But to me, it feels like backpedaling. It feels like you're not building new memories. It feels like, right, everything that we do from this point onwards, or everything we did from the point that that person left, doesn't really count. This is the real Guns N' Roses. And you play the old songs to people that are really interested in it. I know I'm an outlier. Not many people think like that. But aren't you glad that not many people think like me? Especially those of you that find me annoying and are watching me right now. Hate watching, if that's what you're doing. I have no idea. If you are, I prefer money, actually. So send me some of that. So the band played a number of shows. They did the Troubadour, they did Vegas, they did Coachella, they did 2 shows at Mexico. And the band, by the way, have to date released no official live album, DVD, Blu-ray or box set of the reunion era shows. The tour was called Not in This Lifetime. And the reason it was called Not in This Lifetime was because at one point Axl was asked, would you be touring or playing again with Slash and Duff? And he went, not in this lifetime. So of course we got the Not in This Lifetime tour as a sly conclusion or mention of that. This is an unofficial release. This is a apparently limited to 350 if anybody cares too much of it, which features the shows at the Mobile Arena in Las Vegas on the 8th and 9th of April, the Coachella Festival show on the 16th of April, and it also features DVDs of Las Vegas both nights, and a set of documentary and webcast footage. Guns really missed a trick here, because for a band that is very keen on separating you from your money and charging astronomical amounts for not very much, you would have thought that the band would have then thought, well, actually a live album is a complete shoo-in. You can reclaim the band's legacy from Appetite for Democracy. For the people that didn't get to the tour, you can go, look at how good we are. For the people that did go to the tour, you can remind people, look at how good we were. And that is something which you should do. And I mean, live albums don't sell a huge amount. But when you think about what's left outside of the live shows are temporary and transient. They last a night, they're gone forever. And you're a live album, DVD, Blu-ray, box set, whatever it is, you've got an opportunity to reclaim that legacy from people's memories and from, TV broadcasts and whatever, and to go, this is how we want to be remembered. Remember me this way. I'm always reminded of what a model whose name I've forgotten once said when people were talking about the various scantily clad photo shoots that she did. She went, when I'm older, I want to look back on it. I want to be able to remember that's how good I looked. And, a live album or a live DVD is a way of reclaiming the legacy from memory and go, that's what it was really like to be there. That's one of the reasons I buy live albums, because live shows are fantastic most of the time. And I want to remember what they're like and keep that feeling in a little bottle forever, trapped like a moth. All right, maybe not like a moth. But we have the complete absence of a live release, which I think is a great shame considering what Guns are like. So let's go into this box set and see what there is. Obviously, this is unofficial, unauthorized, probably very expensive, and apparently quite limited. So we have DVD 1, live at Vegas on the 8th of April. This is a compilation of multiple uploads to YouTube, by the way. So the shows are definitely there. That's the second show from Las Vegas. So that's the third show the band played. Again, a compilation of multiple YouTube uploads. DVD 3, this is documentary stuff, webcast stuff, some live bits and bobs, bibbly bobs. We have 2 CDs. These are the first Vegas show, by the way. We have another 2 CDs. These are the second Vegas show there. Let me just quickly check and see what else we've got. And then CDs 6 to 8 is the first of the Coachella shows, and some extra live material as well. So that's effectively 3 live shows in a box. I think when this came out, this retailed for about €90 or thereabouts. I remember buying it on a business trip in Brussels when I was used to travel over to Brussels a fair bit for work, where these things were more readily available. I earned a little bit more money then than I do now. We also have a booklet, a booklet which features, obviously, cut and pasted from forum posts. It's pretty weird, actually, these things, because there is a live Pixies bootleg that features my review of the show at Brixton Academy on the inner sleeve, which, of course, I had to buy when I saw that, because how often do you get a chance to have your text on a sleeve, and then you've got some explanatory text around what's on your various CDs, DVDs. In fact, let's have a quick look and go, right, so, and then there's another description of the Coachella show by somebody that went there. Aren't you lucky? Some photographs. And then on the DVD, we have, let's just quick. CD 8, by the way, is a bonus EP featuring soundboard webcast stuff from Coachella. And then we have the DVD, which is the T-Mobile Arena. And DVD 3 is a BBC documentary called The Story of Guns N' Roses. That's almost definitely on YouTube, and I'll post a link to it, alongside Coachella webcast, Troubadour webcast, and some other bits and bobs as well. It's not very good, truth be told, because it's audience recordings. And audience recordings, whilst important to have, are not perhaps worth spending money on. So I would say, if you're going to get something from Guns, and you absolutely positively have to get a live show from the band's reunion era, go for the radio broadcast or the TV broadcast, specifically Glastonbury 2023, Rio 2022, and I think there was a show in New York in 2017 that was on the TV as well, so, or on the radio, so go for that. That's the way to do it. At the same point, Axl joined AC/DC for a number of shows. The band played 13 European festivals and 10 US shows between May the 7th, 2016 and September the 20th, 2016, with Axl singing as Brian Johnson had a perforated eardrum following a show in February 2016. Apparently, of the people that went to the shows, for example, many claimed refunds. I think 5,000 people of the 12,000 people that were due to see AC/DC at Auburn Hills got refunds, for example. I think 7,000 people at Nijmegen in the Netherlands decided they'd rather get a refund than see Axl singing for AC/DC. But I cannot confirm or deny this because I don't know. The rumour has it that on the Axl DC tour, if Axl was more than 5 minutes late for any show due to factors within his control, he would forfeit the entire fee that he would be paid for paying those shows and playing their shows, which is obviously a considerable amount of money. And after that, I don't think Guns have ever played a late show after the Axl DC tour. So thank fuck for that. Better late than never. But I'm looking at it and going, too late, man. I had 20 plus years of you turning up late for every show acting like you were doing us a favour. I'm not interested anymore. There's only so many times you can get burned before you think, now I'm through. At the same point, whilst Axl DC were touring between May and June in Europe, they then did a US stadium tour starting June the 23rd, running through to August the 22nd, then went into arenas with Axl singing for Axl DC between August the 22nd and September the 20th, 2016. So Axl was in two bands at the same time. They had a kind of a rule, which was that they make new music, but only if they like it and it's great. And being a nostalgia act, which is what they were, you can, as a nostalgia act, you can probably buy yourself a grace period, 3, 4, 5 years of coasting on a victory lap of your old material before people start to go, has the well run dry? Have you got no new material to come out with? Have you got nothing left to say? Are you just a touring museum that exists to remind people of who you used to be and how good you used to be? Kind of like me putting on a wig and pretending I still had long hair like I did, albeit briefly, between 1990 and 1992. Those of you that didn't know me then probably can't believe I had arse-length rock hair. To be honest, neither can I anymore, but I did. Sorry, that was the 90s. Lots of bad stuff happened then. Thankfully, not much photographic evidence. As the band kind of moved through that tour, they had no new stuff, so they became a nostalgia act. What they were selling wasn't new material or new music. They were selling memories. They were selling T-shirts. They were selling lithographic prints that were limited. They were selling VIP access to fan clubs. You know, they were not creating new material. They were a nostalgia act. And whilst Duff added raw power, new roads and attitude back into the band's set list, and older songs started to come back in after having not been played for a long period of time, including Bad Obsession, for example, which came back in 2023. It became backwards facing. It became a touring museum to how good they used to be. And whilst the band talked a game about new material, they didn't deliver very much at all. So between 2016 and 2019, they had the Not in This Lifetime tour, which was 11 legs. It was 175 shows, $584 million. Mostly stadiums, then arenas, then discounted tickets you could buy on the day of purchase. And I didn't go. I didn't go because of time. I didn't go because of money. I didn't want to pay £99 to see Guns N' Roses in a football stadium when I paid £45 to see them in an arena. And because it was nostalgia. And I have no nostalgia for the 90s at all, despite what my record collection might tell you. Steven Adler performed Out to Get Me and My Michelle with the band in Cincinnati, Nashville, twice at the Dodger Stadium, which I think is Chicago. I've driven past it, and twice in Buenos Aires, but never more than 2 songs. Izzy Stradlin did do a sound check in 2017, but decided not to go to the show. And then the band added extra material as they went along. So 2016 2018, in June 2018, they did two songs which nobody was expecting into their set list. One, a cover of Soundgarden's Black Hole Sun, which I think was to mark the untimely death of the wonderful Chris Cornell from Soundgarden and Audio Slave and obviously Temple of the Dog. And then another one they added Slither, a song by the Velvet Revolver, the band featuring Duff, Slash and Matt Sorum from the Use Your Illusions lineup, plus Scott Weiland, the junkie that was once in Stone Temple Pilots, and a guy called Dave Krushner, who I don't know what other bands he's been in. And everything kind of ground to a halt at the end of 2019, early 2020, with COVID and the COVID pandemic. Now, during the COVID pandemic, I was of the view that that would be the ideal time to release a live Guns N' Roses box set, a live show, Blu-ray, DVD, 4LP, double CD, that just kind of really kind of shows Appetite for Democracy for what it was. Appetite for Democracy became a historical artifact. It didn't become a representation of who Guns N' Roses at that time currently actually were. And so I thought it's time to do something new that reflects who Guns N' Roses is and what Guns N' Roses is. And if you don't have new material, then you should probably do a live album, especially if the lineup has changed and you've got the old guys in, especially when you're as big as GNR. They sell quite a lot of copies of a live record, probably a heck of a lot more than Appetite for Democracy. If you say, well, do you want a Guns live album with Slash and Duff on, or do you want a Guns live album with Bumblefoot, DJ Ashburn, Tommy Stinson on? Most people would go, I'll have the one with Duff and Slash, please. Those are the guys that I remember from the band when the band were, you know, doing interviews and releasing singles, because Guns have become a nostalgia act to who they used to be. And then in 2021, at the end of that period, they launched the We're Fucking Back tour. Although, as Guns N' Roses often do, they just put an F and then a blank line and then a K to imply, well, it could be, we're freaking back, we're fracking back, we're funting back. What are you doing? Bringing sexy back. We're sexy back tour. Maybe not Guns, maybe not. In 2021, they released their first new material in 13 years. As mentioned before, the download and streaming single Absurd, which I am not a fan of at all, being recycled, reheated leftovers of the track Silkworms, which was played live in 2001 and a version of which circulates on the highly circulated Chinese Democracy sessions, which are all over the internet if you know where to look. No, I'm not telling you where they are. And I thought Absurd was fucking terrible. It really was. Silkworms is a misogynistic, chorusless piece of shit. And Absurd doesn't make it any better at all. Really, it just changes the chorus, and it adds some guitars. So effectively, with Absurd and Hard School, what you've got is overdubbed remixes of Chinese Democracy era leftovers, with Slash and Duff playing on them. There's no credits as to who wrote these songs or anything. In fact, let me have a look at the discs and see what the writing credits are, if there are any for it. So it just says no. It doesn't give you any information whatsoever on the writing credits for Hard School or Absurd. So in all probability, that recording, which sounds substantially like the one that was done in 1999, 2000, 2001 at the Village in LA, sounded like effectively Slash and Duff overdubbing a 20-year-old track and then claiming it's new material when it's no such thing at all. It's not even good material. It's pretty crap, truth be told. And the other thing about Absurd is, listen to it and go, that's the best song you've got? Really? That? Well, the chorus is, what can I do with a bitch like you? And a line about a pussy full of maggots, it's more than you... I mean, like, really? That's... And then I'm sat there going, look, mate, Axel, you're going to be 60 soon if you aren't already 60. What the hell are you doing singing such absolute garbage? I'd be embarrassed to write that lyric as a 14-year-old, let alone to sing it as a 50, 60-year-old. I just wouldn't do it. But I've got more taste than Guns in some respects, because Guns do tours where they have you know, scantily clad women wearing bras or nothing at all, and cover art that's got naked women on like they're still perpetually 14. This is one of the reasons I don't like huge chunks of metal, is because you look at the visuals and the cover art and it's just like, well, it's tits and dragons and monsters, isn't it? Megadeth albums would be a heck of a lot better if Peter Saville did the design, or heck, anybody apart from that stupid guy that does the stupid thing of Rattlehead all the time. Like, come on, pick something that isn't so obviously teenage and you know, Lord of the Kings kind of level of nonsense. And Guns are not that far removed from it, to be honest. Do cover art that looks like it's proper art and not just paintings of women with no clothes on and dragons and monsters and military guns and tanks. You know, that's the kind of stuff that happens when you've not actually spoken to a woman or been in a relationship with one for a long period of time. That's the kind of art you go, yeah, that's what I aspire to, is to be driving a tank with a naked woman adorned on top of it, shooting a dragon with a flamethrower. And it's like, nah, how old are you again? 12? 13? This is one of the reasons why metal is never going to be my favourite genre. It sounds wonderful, but the lyrics are often terrible, and the cover art is equally mad. Even Motorhead, who I love dearly, had their fair share of pretty awful cover art over the years. Although I do think the cover for Orgasmatron is amazing, because Motorhead had a huge amount of paintings and they had a little bit of military on, but they never had, as far as I can recall, naked women on the cover. So that's a thumbs up from me on Motorhead, and why I think Motorhead are better than Megadeth. Not that either you or I expected us to get into that element of the conversation. I might do Motorhead at some point. Guess I've got to listen to them more. One of the good things about the NOTCAST is that I end up listening to music that I haven't listened to a huge amount, and rediscovering things in it that I'd never really experienced before. So it expands my knowledge of what I already know and like, which is wonderful. Really, really enjoyable, actually. So 2021 to 2023 had the We're Fucking Back tour, more correctly, the We're Fucking Back tour, which saw the release of Absurd on the 3rd of August 2021 and Hard School on the 24th of September 2021. See, I'm getting my decades mixed up. Then again, these are very old songs. Hard School, also known as Jackie Chan, is a much, much better track and probably the best one we've heard so far. But it is, again, a reheated, remixed and overdubbed 2001 recording. So it could have Brain on drums, for example, and it could have you know, Paul Hughes and Buckethead on the original mix, and Robin Fink doing guitars, of course, scrubbed out by Duff and Slash. Hard School's a really good rock track, much, much better than anything that the band have released since then. Baffling that it didn't come out sooner, but I'm glad that it didn't. And it made me think, oh, the band might have some fire left in the tank. They don't. Guns' approach these days is to take unreleased songs from Chinese Democracy and get Slash and Duff to widdly woo over the top of them and go, there, new songs. They're not new songs, they're old songs, very old songs. I've got children younger than these songs. So yeah, that's how it works. 2023, meanwhile, saw the band play, 2022 saw the band play Rio. That was about a 3.5 hour show. That's on YouTube. 2023 saw the band play Glastonbury, on, I think, probably the third or fourth leg of their victory lap. Reminds people how good they used to be, and released what is to date the last Guns N' Roses material so far. A single called Perhaps, backed with a legendary and lost track called The General. Perhaps is, again, another overdubbed, remixed and re-recorded demo from the year 2001, which has been circulating amongst trading circles for at least 4 years by the time it came out. The General is completely unknown to the vast majority of people. But the thing you'll get with The General, and with Perhaps, is that they aren't very good songs. They're okay. They're mid-paced album tracks. The choruses aren't particularly strong. They don't sound like Guns N' Roses. They sound like someone's thrown a whole bunch of guitars at Elton John and forced him to record new material while singing in a slightly different key. I mean, I'm all for bands being products of their influences. I'm all for bands releasing new material. But if the new material isn't particularly good, don't be surprised if people come out and say it's not particularly good. Perhaps, and The General, is a record that I bought because I have a loyalty to the bands that I love. and loyalty sometimes that isn't deserved. And when I start to drift in my loyalty is when I start to stop seeing the band live, because I go, you're not making new songs, you're not releasing new songs. Heck, The Cure haven't released an album since 2008, but they have played 7 new songs live, and those are new songs. Those aren't reheated offcuts from 2001, and they haven't got the old guys back in the band, so they're working on new material. I can see that when they play live. The Sisters of Mercy have something like 30 or 40 songs that they've played live that they haven't released. Guns, no. 4 songs in 15 years, and they're all songs which have been recorded 20 or more years ago. And that's when a band becomes a nostalgia act. They stop creating new memories, they stop writing to the times, they stop talking or articulating about now. They start talking about remember when, as opposed to this is what life is like for me now, this is how I navigate my way through life now. It's not that at all. And so I can't form new memories with bands that don't release new material. I just can't. I can't connect to the material because the material is old. If the newest song is one that I first heard when I was 27 or 30, for example, then that's going to be a song that my main memories are going to be about 20 years old for it, because I'm 50 now. So that's why I think it's really, really important that, yes, you can give a band a grace period, a victory lap, 4 or 5 years, when they're writing, or more correctly, getting back into the learning how to be who they are again. But after that, shit or get off the pot. Stop telling people we're back, we're going to, be exciting live proposition when you're playing songs that are 33 years old to people that are either old or wish that they'd been there at the time. Stop living in the past, live in the now, which is why I think it's really, really important when the Stooges did both Ready to Die and The Weirdness. They're not great albums, but they did new stuff. That's what matters. When Suede did Bloodsport, The Blue Hour, Night Thoughts, and their most recent album, Auto Fiction, all of which are at least as good as some of the albums from their original incarnation, and most of which are better. You then go, so you're a band that showed how to do it perfectly. Is that you play new songs, you write new songs, you release new songs, you play them live, you stand behind the courage of your convictions to demonstrate the material and to show people this is who we are, this is what we do, this is where we are now. Music has always been, for me, the map whilst I have been lost on the landscape of life. And if you don't have a new map that's updated to reflect where you are at that given point in time, you're often lost. I don't like living in the past. As somebody who spent at least one whole year in 1991, 1991 was often fucking shit. So can we have some new songs and some new memories that talk about the world now and who we are now? And that's where we are. So that's me half ranting, half talking about Guns N' Roses in their current incarnation, effectively a touring museum to how good they used to be, charging absurd amounts of money to play very old songs in football stadiums to very old people who have a lot more money than they used to have, and not creating new material. I would much rather Guns release lots of new material, and not just new material that was remixed and overdubbed from back then, but new material that's actually like new. Because writing songs is not hard, it's not difficult. Try it. I do probably 2 a month. Now, whether they're any good or not is another matter, but writing a verse, a chorus, a melody, writing some lyrics, it's not difficult. It just comes into my head. And I don't sit there and go, what's the best way to articulate how I feel? I write about it, and somehow the words fall there, and that's what happens. And you just kind of think, okay, so if the well has gone dry, stop pretending and stop. You don't need the money and you don't need the adulation. So, basically, if you're in a band and you haven't written out, I get that if people aren't going to buy the records ever again, or you'll stand no chance of selling records, then I understand that commerce is involved in that. I get that. I totally, totally do. But at the same point, in 20 years' time, are you going to want to commemorate the 50th anniversary of an album, or are you going to do the 20th anniversary of an album that you just put out now? Because you're a long time dead. You can't do reissue box sets if you haven't got the original albums to release. You can't do tie-in tours. So not releasing new material is actually very, very short-sighted. And all it makes people go is, okay, you're a nostalgia act. And that's much the same as that one guy that goes to the school reunions tells everybody about how amazing that try he scored was at rugby back in 1989 before Tim Berners-Lee had invented the internet, and everyone goes, dude, that was a long time ago, and we've heard it a lot. Sometimes, as Depeche Mode had in the documentary for the album Exciter, which is on the DVD, which is around about there, I think, on my list. Sometimes you need new jokes rather than becoming an old joke. And that's where I'm going to wrap up. So thanks for watching 50 minutes of me talking about Guns N' Roses. If you made it to the end, you've earned a biscuit. And if you haven't made it to the end, it doesn't matter what I say at this point because you're not watching it. So I will see some of you again. Take care of yourselves and each other. Stay beautiful and adios amigos. Bye.